have to say, well, if we can use 30 terabytes of disk, and that's a reasonable thing to spend money on now, what could you do that would actually benefit customers that use this 30 terabytes of disk? And one of the things that we did was Search Inside the Book, which uses about 30 terabytes of disk, because we keep the full images of all the pages, and we now have over 200,000 different books that are completely searchable, and you can view the actual images of the books. And that the good news about that is it's very beneficial to customers, and it soaks up a lot of this now almost free disk space that you can buy out in the world. Another example is A9. Let me just go here, which just launched, again, about a week ago, the A9 Yellow Pages. Let me do a search on optical. Oh, this regular mouse works too, and it's a lot easier to use. And one of the innovative things that the A9 team did for their Yellow Pages is take 20 million photos of over 1 million different businesses in 10 different cities. And they did that in a very cool way. I mean, here, if you go down the list here, this is optical in Seattle. But the map changes, the little numbers highlight as you go over, which I think is a nice user interface touch. But if I go down to Optical Illusions, Inc., click on that. Takes you to a detail page for Optical Illusions, Inc., and you can kind of stroll along the street here. So here is, and you can zoom in on this picture. And actually, this is kind of a cool picture because you can see in the reflection of this window, that's the vehicle that we took the picture from. And I like the way this guy is in motion. It's just kind of and you can't barely see her, but there's a woman behind him. You can just sort of see her shoes. It's only been up a week, but if you take 20 million photographs of 1 million different businesses, we've already gotten lots of contacts from people, who found themselves in these pictures. And if they request to be removed, we remove them. But this is a pretty cool use of technology. And again, it's looking at what's changed in the world, because one of the most interesting things about this is how they did it. And you can keep going, by the way. I can click here, and it'll take me, down the next street. I can just keep walking down this street. Okay, so how did they do this? Should I go back to the PowerPoint? All right. Here's the truck. There are more than one of these. That is a camera, a digital camera mounted on the top of the truck. And when they first started doing it, their first tests were done not with SUVs, but with regular cars. And the camera was not in any kind of enclosure. But they attracted too much attention, and people would smile for the camera, or do more profane things for the camera. So they solved that problem by getting a taller vehicle and putting the camera in an enclosure, so it just sort of looks like some luggage on the roof, and people don't notice it. So let's see. Here's one of you guys, if you've been to Times Square, you may have seen this guy. He's out there all the time. I think he's called the Naked Cowboy. He's been doing this for years and years and years. He's been there at least for 8 years, maybe longer, I don't know. And I think TGI Fridays has hired him now as a sort of mascot. But anyway, they captured the Naked Cowboy in Times Square. Is this when I go to the video? All right, let me see. We've got to do this the hard way because it's not working the easy way. All right, watch this. Actually, let me pause this for a sec. Let me give you a little setup. So this is some of the actual footage from this camera. This is just to give you this is a camera that is connected to a laptop that has a GPS in it. And so the car just drives around, and the driver doesn't have to do anything except make sure all the equipment is running properly. And it just takes, a bunch of frames per second, and the car knows where it is at all times. So this now one of the cities that we did over 10 cities, but one of them was Washington D.C. And the driver, whose name is Josh in this case, had a fairly interesting experience because the camera broke and needed some adjustments. It just got jiggled or something and needed to be fixed and remounted. So, which happens occasionally, so he didn't think anything of it. He stopped the car, he got out, and he started to fix the camera. But unfortunately for Josh, he happened to stop right in front of the State Department. And unfortunately, just to make matters a little more complicated, it was the day before the election. And so Washington was at its highest state of alert. And fortunately, this entire incident was captured on video, and it's kind of fun to watch. So there's Josh. He's getting out of the car. Going to work on the camera a little, but he sees somebody's coming. He's reaching for his cell phone now, trying to call Amazon.com legal. Now there are two of them. They're very curious why Josh is photographing the State Department. Here's the third one. Here's the fourth one. And if you can catch glimpses of Josh's face, you can see that he is a little stressed. By the way, at a certain point here, you can see the woman in the red hair, who I think is the one sort of in charge. She's trying to calm Josh down, and she says something to him like, "It's not like we're accusing you of having a bomb or anything," which didn't really work. And yeah, here's the great. They take a picture of Josh, and they actually were they actually were very friendly to Josh, and he explained the whole thing, and they made some phone calls and confirmed his strange but true story about what was going on, and the whole incident only took like 45 minutes, and Josh was sent on his way to photograph the rest of Washington D.C. Let's go back. Okay. But all of those things, okay. All those things are, if you look at what all the problems that had to be solved to do something like get that, the GPS integrated with the digital camera and get those in trucks and then solve all these little point problems that people were noticing in the camera and so on, that's what innovating is all about. It really is those kinds of problems. And the great thing about this is, at Amazon.com, is I do very little of this. So, we have a culture where people in small teams can go off and do these relatively low-cost experiments and try to build neat things. If you want to have an innovative company, the single most important thing, even ahead of minimizing the cost of experimentation, is to make sure that you're selecting the people correctly on the way in. And so you need to hire people who like to build, who like to invent, and you need to make sure that they like to do that at all granularities. Sometimes you come across these people who are only interested in inventing at the grandest sort of whiteboard level, and they actually can't make progress in the real world. They're unwilling to figure out how to mount the camera on top of the truck. And mounting the camera on top of the truck turns out to be incredibly important. This is, I've mostly included this slide to demonstrate my true pedigree as a geek. This is me in 4th grade. And most of you in this room are far too young to recognize that device that I'm sitting in front of. But I'm one of the only people I know who had access to, my age, who had access to a computer in 4th grade. The school that I went to in Houston got this, a company donated this teletype and also donated some excess mainframe time-sharing time that they had. And so we got this thing one day, and none of the teachers knew how to use it, and nobody knew how to use it, but it had manuals. And that phone receiver is called an acoustic modem, and you actually put it's a 300 baud modem, and all the programs were stored on paper tape, which you'd punch holes in. And me and about 3 other kids started staying after school and learned how to program this mainframe computer and store our programs and our very primitive programs on paper tape. And that went on for several months until we discovered that the mainframe was pre-programmed to play Star Trek. And pretty much that's all we did with the computer after that. We would stay after school. The teachers were like, boy, these kids just love computers. It was this really cool Star Trek game where, it's all done on this teletype on paper, and it would print a little, I think it was a 9x9 grid, and somewhere in that 9x9 grid, an asterisk would be a star, and a plus sign would be a Klingon ship, and you had to it was a simulation game, and you had to you had limited resources, you had only so much power, and you had to decide how to allocate that power between shields and engines and phasers, and it was actually unbelievably fun, and but you've got to find people who are passionate about building. This is our first employment ad at Amazon.com. We posted this on Usenet, and we asked for exactly what we wanted, and the technology, computer science people, and business people who are interested in technology have always been most important. So you must have experience designing and building large and complex yet maintainable systems, and you should be able to do so in about 1/3 of the time that most competent people think possible. And by the way, as a total aside, you'll see that the name of the company at the time was Cadabra. That was the first name of the company, and Cadabra was a terrible name because while driving across the country, as my wife driving, I called an attorney in Seattle and asked the attorney if he could incorporate the company so it would already be ready by the time we arrived. And he said, sure, this is no problem. By the way, this attorney was my friend's divorce attorney. So this wasn't like Wilson Sonsini or anything. This was, so he said, sure, what do you want the name of the company to be? And I, was all proud of myself for having anticipated that question.